our high level summary point was that the voluntary market has driven something like a 7 to 25% acceleration of development. We're not trying to be precise. We're not trying to overstate the evidence, but we are trying to say that within reason, we can conclude that this market has had an impact, and then we can debate about the size, the significance of that impact. But I think market level analysis really helps clarify that you can't ignore the voluntary market in the way that project and system level analysis are prone to do.
I'm going to jump around here, but you mentioned this uh, estimate that the voluntary markets have driven somewhere between 7 and 25% renewable energy deployment over the past decade. And you make the distinction between that and additionality, which I'm going to get to in a second. But um, how should people understand or interpret that estimate? First of all, it's a quite a range. Second of all, well, I'll just leave it there. How should people interpret those numbers and sort of the lower and upper bounds, and what does driven mean in this context?
Yeah. Um, well, as a researcher, I will say anytime that anyone sees a point estimate that does not have a range, you should immediately question it. Every number ever produced from research is wrong. Uh, Within the best we can do is identify bounds and say, well, we think it's this, plus or minus X. So that 7 to 25% comes from different assumptions. The low end of that essentially says all we're going to give the market credit for is the revenue. That's it. All that matters is the money. If you think that, maybe something like a 7% acceleration. At the higher end, it was kind of this indirect impact of what's being supported through long-term contracts. It goes a bit beyond the money. And again, you can look at the report for all the underlying assumptions. And this idea of what does it mean to drive? And I think that is probably a pivot into this distinction between additionality and marginal causation. So when I say that the voluntary market drives development, again, I do not mean that you can go and find specific actions and map them on a one-to-one basis to new development. Uh, so much of this debate is semantic and we can get hung up on these words, but what I think we should shift to is an understanding, which is far more common in economics, that marginal actions have marginal impacts.